30 seconds is all it takes for an entire landscape to completely transform into a disaster zone. On Monday, June 8th, the southern region of Mindanao, Philippines faced a terrifying encounter with nature's raw power. At exactly 7:37 a.m., a massive 7.8 magnitude earthquake ruptured the ocean floor, sending violent shockwaves ripping through major cities. Captured live on security cameras, dashcams, and mobile phones, the world witnessed high-rise buildings folding into busy streets, a local Jollibee restaurant collapsing instantly, and an entire mountainside sliding down to bury homes in Glan. With the death toll climbing past 40 and over 450 injured, this wasn't just a random tragedy. It was the reawakening of a historic monster. This is the raw, untamed footage of a nightmare caught on camera. When a 7.8 magnitude megathrust earthquake strikes, the ground doesn't just shake, it warps. In General Santos City, home to over 720,000 residents, Monday morning started like any other. But within moments, the entire urban landscape turned into a shifting trap. Look closely at this dashboard camera footage from a vehicle stuck in morning traffic. The asphalt under these heavy trucks begins to ripple like fluid waves. The lateral force is so immense that heavy SUVs are thrown sideways, their tires completely losing traction. You can see terrified drivers abandoning their cars right in the middle of the road, struggling to crawl to safety because standing upright during a tremor of this scale is physically impossible. The most shocking footage comes from a crowded commercial district, where a 4-story commercial building housing a busy grocery store on the ground floor structurally failed in a matter of seconds. The lower support pillars sheared completely under the intense pressure, causing the top 3 floors to drop straight down, crushing everything beneath them. Emergency rescue crews spent hours digging through the pulverized concrete, managing to pull 2 survivors out alive, while a third was tragically recovered dead. Outside the security perimeter, mothers like Daslinda Duvio waited in heartbreaking silence, praying just to recover her trapped son so her family could find closure. The psychological impact on survivors was devastating. Jojo Kalma, a 44-year-old local driver who watched a building collapse right in front of his windshield, confessed he broke down in tears, consumed entirely by the fear of never seeing his children again. What makes this disaster incredibly tragic is the precise time it struck. At 7:37 a.m., thousands of children were standing in school courtyards across Mindanao, celebrating their very first day back after a 2-month summer vacation. In the town of Malita, east of the city, over 100 students and their teachers were lined up for the traditional morning flag-raising ceremony when the shockwaves hit. Their principal, Roosevelt Cachuela, described the transition from pure excitement to absolute terror as instantaneous. In a remarkable display of discipline, the students dropped to the ground and remained completely still. That collective instinct to freeze rather than run blindly into falling debris is the primary reason every single child in that courtyard walked away unharmed. Meanwhile, the local healthcare system faced an immediate crisis. The main provincial hospital suffered severe structural cracking, making it far too dangerous for patients or staff to remain inside. With aftershocks constantly rattling the area, doctors and nurses evacuated everyone to an open parking lot. Under the blazing hot sun, makeshift medical tents became emergency operating rooms. Yet, right in the middle of this devastation, life fought back. Inside one of those hot temporary tents, medical teams successfully delivered a healthy newborn baby, a sudden glimmer of hope in a city surrounded by rubble. To look beyond the chaotic footage, we have to look at the terrifying science responsible for this devastation. The southern Philippines is locked in a constant battle with the Pacific Ring of Fire, but the specific culprit behind Monday's catastrophe is the Kotabato Trench. This deep oceanic trench is a subduction zone where one massive piece of the Earth's crust is forced violently beneath another. These tectonic plates do not glide smoothly, they lock up. For generations, they bend and compress, locking in immense amounts of geological strain like a tightly coiled heavy spring. When that lock inevitably snaps, the overriding plate thrusts upward, violently displacing the entire column of ocean water sitting directly above it. This sudden vertical displacement is the exact recipe for a catastrophic tsunami. Here is the most chilling detail about the Kotabato Trench. It sits right against the shoreline. There are no thousands of miles of open ocean to act as a buffer. When this fault line shifts, a tsunami doesn't take hours to cross the sea. It hits the coast in a devastating 2 to 5 minutes. There is no realistic window for a mass warning. By the time an emergency alert hits a mobile phone, the ocean is already breaking down the door. This is exactly what occurred during the midnight disaster of 1976. The fault ruptured at a shallow depth of just 20 kilometers, while coastal communities slept. A massive 9-meter high wall of water obliterated 700 kilometers of coastline, claiming over 8,000 lives. In that historic event, the ocean surge, not the shaking, caused 85% of all casualties. Monday's earthquake carried almost the exact same raw energy as the 1976 nightmare. So, why wasn't the entire southern coastline completely erased from the map a second time? The answer comes down to one single unpredictable variable: the depth of the rupture. Data verified by the U.S. Geological Survey and PHIVOLCS confirmed that Monday's fault slip occurred much deeper within the Earth's crust, more than 30 kilometers down inside the subducting slab. Because the break happened so deep, the vertical displacement of the seafloor was significantly minimized. A lesser lift on the ocean bed meant a much smaller volume of water was pushed upward. Think about the gravity of that fact. The thin line between dozens of casualties and thousands of deaths had absolutely nothing to do with modern engineering, coastal seawalls, or advanced evacuation drills. It was entirely determined by the random depth of a fracture deep within the Earth. The coast didn't survive because it was prepared. It survived because of a geological mercy. And that depth is something no one can predict or rely on the next time this fault triggers. While the ocean rippled outward, the inland mountains surrendered. 60 kilometers from the epicenter, in the rural town of Glan, the intense ground acceleration caused an entire mountainside to completely detach. Millions of tons of saturated soil and volcanic rock roared down the slopes, completely engulfing a quiet village at the base. More than a dozen family homes vanished instantly under 15 feet of suffocating mud. Emergency teams faced immense difficulty navigating roads torn apart by cracks, realizing very quickly that rescue operations had grimly turned into a recovery mission. This disaster is not an isolated, freak event. It is part of an ongoing, volatile pattern. Just 8 months prior, a 6.9 magnitude earthquake struck the central island of Cebu, claiming 79 lives. Combined with an average of 20 intense typhoons every single year, the Philippines remains one of the most disaster-exposed nations on the planet. But the cities surrounding the Kotabato Trench, especially General Santos, have grown exponentially since the tragedy of 1976. Today, there are more high-rises, denser populations, and significantly more concrete standing directly in the path of a silent fault that offers zero warning time. Currently, General Santos is under an official state of calamity. Over 2,000 homes and 117 government buildings lie severely compromised, while 6,000 schools sit completely empty as structural engineers inspect them one by one. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. promised that the national government would mobilize all resources to ensure Mindanao is not left behind. PHIVOLCS Director Teresito Bacolcal confirmed this as the strongest earthquake to strike the nation this year, while global news agencies are calling it the most significant warning shot from this specific fault line in exactly half a century. The immediate tsunami warnings have been lifted, but the Earth refuses to remain quiet. Continuous aftershocks, some registering as high as 6.5, repeatedly force rescue teams to pull back from the precarious rubble, waiting for the dust to settle before climbing right back in. Somewhere 30 kilometers beneath the ocean floor, the fractured tectonic plate is slowly settling into its violent new position. The trench that has claimed thousands of lives before remains exactly where it has always been fully loaded, and it is far from finished. What are your thoughts on this incredible footage? Are modern megacities doing enough to prepare for a major fault line rupture? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. If you found this completely original, factual documentary important, please give it a like, share it to raise awareness, and subscribe for more deep investigative content. Stay safe, and we will see you in the next video.